Oh, hello, Kevin.
Hey, man. It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you too. Good to see
Yes,
you.
it was a great birthday weekend for me last weekend. So now I'm still coming down off of that. That
Mm.
was a beautiful experience. Yeah, it's good to see you.
Yeah, um, I think I told you before too. You look a little more relaxed. You look happier. It's good to see you this way.
Yeah, yeah. I feel relaxed. I feel good. So, are you ready to get this cross-eyed crucible thing jumping this morning?
Yeah, let's do this. And I think we agreed that we were going to do the this introduction of spirit threshold.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and walk ourselves over the threshold into the cross-eyed crucible. And for our audience, what we want you to know is that this is what we do beforehand. We've been doing this beforehand before we entered into the cross-eyed crucible. This time, we're inviting you into the experience to just know how we are preparing to be in community with one another. And so, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and walk us over the threshold, if that's okay with you, Matt.
Yeah,
Okay.
please.
All right. So if I mean, in however way you feel that is feasible for you to enter into the cross-eyed crucible with us, please do so right now. Grab a candle, put your feet to the earth, put your hands together if you feel that that is comfortable, and I'll just offer words to the ancestors. Dear ancestors, thank you for being with us today. As we walk over into the cross-eyed crucible, we want to acknowledge and honor your presence. May we just ask that our words be ordered, that we are walking in alignment with what you want from us, that we are showing up in dignity and respect for not only for ourselves but for all living beings. Please be with us, guide us, show us the way. Thank you so much for being with us. I say that in advance, and yes, I'm ready to do this good work. I'm Kevin Martin. I'm crossing over into the cross-eyed crucible, and I will pass to Matt.
Amen. Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, I'm looking down at the threshold here, and I can see you in there, Kevin. I'm coming in. I just want to say thank you to the ancestors' spirit, both in body and in spirit. Behind me, I can feel them pushing me in. Get in there, get this work done. Go hang with Kevin and all the our friends that are coming in. I'm really thankful for this. I love doing this. I love the story we're going to work on. It's risky, and that's okay. The risk is part of the process, and so is the what we tending the story, and also what we gain from the story. So, thank you for this. Thank you for the story, Ahimsaka Angulimala. Yeah, I put my hand on the door frame and I say thank you, thank you, thank you, and I cross the threshold. I'm in. Good to be here with you, Kevin.
Yeah, it's good to be here with you, Matt. And for our community members out there, what we're going to do today is we are going to steward a story, Angulimala, and so that where you can find that story is actually in the bottom and in the description should be a link that links to the story that you can listen to. So going forward, we'll be feeding the story, tracking the story, nurturing the story, tending the story. I know Matt has his words, I have my words in terms of what we're actually doing with the story. But what we want you to do, audience, is to reel into this story with us. So in the description, we have included the first part of the story. And what we're asking you to do is to listen to the story, steep in that story. Um, Matt, is there anything that you want to share in regards to what we're asking our community members to do
Yeah,
with our story?
yeah, it's an ancient story, right? And so there's gonna there if you're like me, there are parts of it that might be like, okay, I don't understand what this means, or wow, that I have an emotional reaction to the story. And just know so that in the tradition, both I'm going to speak for Kevin and for the moment, which can be dangerous, so I'll be careful. Uh, uh, when we feed the story, it's actually we're taking whatever emotions that we have about the story and putting it on the hooks that the story provides. So the story has these hooks. I might get angry about some part of it, and I'll hang my anger on that. And that is allowing the story in. So yeah, taking a moment now to just maybe we should pause, and people, if you haven't listened to the story yet, click down, and it's going to take, I don't know how it's long it's going to be, 15 or 20 minutes. Listen to the story before you hear us feed it. That's what all I would have to say.
And can we invite in a moment of silence for that break in
Yeah.
between? Okay. So what we're doing is we're gonna invite in a moment of silence, and if you cross over that silence, it will be implied that you have actually listened to the story. And now we're gonna begin to talk about the story once we've crossed over that bridge. So Matt, let's just take a moment. Okay. We're over that bridge. So now everyone who has crossed that bridge has listened to the story, and now we can begin to talk about it. Matt, do you mind if I go ahead and just introduce what this story is?
Yeah, yeah, please.
Okay, so this story is Angulimala, and Angulis are fingers, and the mala is something in which you wear around your neck. And this story is a widely shared story in the Buddhist tradition. Teachers actually shared this story with their students, and it's about a man who collected 999 fingers, and he just needed one more to complete his goal of collecting 1,000 fingers. So in this story, what we're exploring is how did this quote unquote monster become, come into being. And so what we're doing now is we're going to share the first part of the story that focuses on a birth of a young person, of a young man. And so we're going to talk about what resonated with us in the first 20 minutes of this story. And so Matt, do you want to feed the story first, or
Oh
how do
yeah,
you want to do this?
I'm raring to go here. One of the first things that hit me was, see, I'm just jumping right in here because
Yes.
when I'm going to do a drawing for this, and so I'm doing some research on the weaponry that in the story the light emanates from. It's not that it's reflecting on, it's coming. That's one of the things right away. I'm like, wow. So it's not. It's so these weapons are emitting light. They're not reflecting light. That's a difference. That image and the connection to it, that that meant since he was born in the sign of the thief or the bandit, those two things together meant that he was going to be like cursed by the prediction that this is just who he is. And it tumbles on from there. His father's response to that, and his father freaking out, and where he goes with that, which we'll talk about, I hope, because that was another thing that angered me. Um, I was happy that they finally had a baby when I heard, what's the mom's name again? Do you remember?
Matani.
Matani, yeah. Like I could see her. I could say, oh, finally, they get to have this baby. They've been looking forward to having a baby. But then this whole thing, it ticked me off, because I know other stories where there have been moments. I'm thinking about, there's a story about Tecumseh, who was the Shawnee Indian who tried to create a confederacy of the Indian nations to stop the white taking over of all the United States early in the 18th century. And he had a comet go over, which was, I think it was Halley's comet, and they called it I think they called it the Cougar's tail or something like that in the Shawnee, which meant that it didn't mean that he was going to be a horrible monster. It was meant that he was going to be this warrior. So that
Mm-hmm.
was what, that would help the people. And so that was interesting to me, is that it was immediately interpreted that this was a negative thing and that warrior is bad, when in fact, warrior spirit to me is a necessity. In part, it's what gets me up sometimes in the morning. It's what helps direct me, follow the focus. It's not always the part of me that helps me hear what the ancestors and God or the universe is telling me, but it is really important. So to just right away say, this is negative, we got to do whatever we're going to do to this kid because he's going to be a monster. I feel like he was sold down the river. It sucked.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that was one response.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for that. I also had resonance with this couple, having all these abortions. Not not abortions. Sorry, miscarriages. That was a slip. I don't know what that was about. Yeah, this couple having these miscarriages, and now they were finally able to bring forth a life into the world. Extremely happy for this couple.
Yeah.
The thing that kind of got me, and maybe this is because I just had a birthday, so it's this whole thing about being in the Aquarian, being born under the Aquarius sign. Now we're coming into the age of Aquarius. There was something about him being born under this constellation, um, that his fate was already determined. This was a sticking point for me, particularly, as a Black person,
Mhm.
as much of your fate is pretty much already decided by media, by government, by all these sources that are outside of your control. So immediately I had this feeling of stickiness. Okay, this constellation is auspicious, and now his father is going to figure out what is wrong with his child, because these weapons are glittery. He has like this feeling of like something is off, and then it's confirmed by the astrologer that hey, your child is was born under this bandit constellation. Immediately my heart dropped. It's like, okay, this kid basically has no future before he even has gotten into the world and planted his feet into the ground. And so that was like one of the immediate sticking points for me. Um, and also there's things that is arising for me around just around the gender aspect of the story, the absence of the femininity. And
Mhm.
so what I noticed beforehand is how much of the first part of this story is centered around the father's understanding, or the father's emotional condition, whether he makes the choice not to consult with his wife. At that pivotal point, there's actually a point in there where he decides that he's going to carry this burden, this emotional burden of knowing this about his son, and he's not going to tell his wife, but he's going to consult with the king, and him and the king is going to devise a plan.
Mhm.
So yeah.
I'm glad you brought up the issue of race too, for the moment. What I went right back to is that I just used a phrase. Uh, I felt like he was sold down the river. Now that is in reference, I would not, I'm pretty damn sure, to slavery in America. You get sold down the Mississippi, you go to the really horrible plantations in, Louisiana, or, um, and so I just want to acknowledge that I said that. I don't know where to go with that beyond that. But wow, look what I just said. And that there are these underlying systems that's too what these stories do. These underlying systems aren't just of restraint, of curse, of that can happen from one race to another, from one culture to another, from one gender to another, and from a parent. Like, I recognize too that, look, I'm a dad. Like, you're nervous when you have your, okay, I won't speak for anybody else. I was nervous, and like, if I bought into the fact that I saw some light emanating from a weapon and decided, because somebody had read my horoscope that day, that my son was bad, that's what happens to dads. From my perspective, they get nervous when their first kids are born. Am I going to be capable of being a good parent? And so it didn't surprise me that later on, and I'm jumping ahead, but it's still in this section, that when he gets to the king, he says, do you want me to look at, if this is bad, do you want me to kill my kid? And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Is that about you trying to care about the kingdom, or are you just trying to unload so you don't have to continue worrying about whether you're going to be a good dad or not? Does that make sense?
Yes, complete sense.
Yeah. So yeah, they were just like, I'm getting pissed off at the dad, and like he didn't involve the mom. And then also him listening to all the people on the street, like talk about it's
Mhm.
like, that's gossip. He was just like getting into gossip and not going back, which I'm trying to practice and saying, okay, what does ancestors say first? What does higher power say first? Not even the king. Before I go to the king, I want to go to my wife, my partner, but he didn't do any of that. Like, so God bless him. But it's a cautionary tale in that regard to me
Right.
when I pass.
Right. Yeah, we have to understand that this story is taking place like thousands of years ago, in this world. At this time, this the environment was deeply entrenched in these caste systems, and so that's another thing that's arising for me is that this family is a part of a Brahmic, a Brahmic class, which is the Brahmas, are the very highest, caste in this Hindu society, and so this couple, right, this man, this father, he has a lot of privileges. He can consult with an astrologer, he can talk directly to the king because
Yeah.
he's working in the king's court, and so he has all these privileges, and at the same time, he can't make, you know, um, he doesn't, he can't make these decisions, on his own. There's something about his worldview that is rather dull because, because of the constraints of his class.
Mhm.
Therefore, he's consulting with, astrology, and he's going to the astrologer and he's consulting with the king. But critically, what is he thinking? Um, uh, what is resonating, what is going on within him? We don't really know that. Also, another thing that I want to point to in this story is that the response the response that his father has, to this foretelling of his son, is that he specifically gives his son a name that would counteract, this prophecy. And so he names his son, harmless, not to harm, do no harm, right? And so what we see in the beginnings of the upbringing of his son is that his son is actually molded to be like this perfect child, and he does this well. He's quite friendly to goats, goats, animals, and so forth. He has extreme, athleticism. He's athletic. He's kind. I'm sure he's kind to old people. He sounds like the perfect child, and yet, we have this feeling that there's something looming out there. Something's just not aligning. Did you have any resonance with his early life,
Yeah,
Ahimsaka?
uh, you're ringing the bell for me. The issue of the calling him a himsaka, harmless, or to cause no harm, to me that goes to also the same place with the warrior. To say that to be a warrior or to see warrior tendencies is to be a bad thing. Same thing with like to say, okay, that to call someone harmless is to ignore the fact that sometimes standing up and defending something, someone else may get hurt, and that may be actually the best thing for everybody involved. Not that we intentionally go around trying to hurt people, but sometimes well, I just think that, yeah, coloring somebody and saying you're always going to be harmless is an insult to the broad spectrum of the
Right,
personality. That kind of energy can appear to one person to be, he's going to turn into a monster. No, he's just, he wants to throw spears.
right, right,
That's not a bad thing, you know? And what does that do to a person to have the restrictions and the constriction of the elders say, you better, because everything is dependent. Our family is dependent upon how you behave as, harmless. The other thing I want to say is I appreciate you saying the issue of that this is an old story, and that I want to pay attention to the fact that if I get angry, I'm not getting angry at Hindu, Indian, Persian culture from then. What I'm getting angry at is, like I said, the stuff that I've hung up on
right,
the hooks of the story, right? And so, yeah, I don't want to disrespect it. I'm so thankful that this story is here. And it's not here by a mistake. This story works.
right.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I just want to add, and if there's any, scholars out there that understand this story, we want you to weigh in. And so this is the thing: we're not claiming to be experts of anything, not even of storytelling.
Not even of
We're just
ourselves.
is not even of ourselves, right? And so this is where you, as our audience, you get to weigh in on this conversation, and you get to weigh in on the story. So listen to the story, see what is coming up for you. You may be able to pull on different aspects of the story depending on your own personal history, and that's fine. This is like the purpose of what we're doing here in community. So I just want to be able to point that out to our audience, that we're not experts. We're not claiming to be experts. We're bringing our own crap to the cross-eyed crucible so that we can work, so that we can work through this mess and make some sense, or at least try to make some sense of this
Yeah.
stuff.
So we have a couple of minutes left. I don't know. Do we need to give more direction or just
Yeah, go.
confirm for
Yeah.
people? Like it's all good. The thing I heard you say, bringing crap to the crucible. One of the things too in my train or my what I've learned from teachers that I venerated and venerate was that tears, grief, they are mana. Okay, mana. Okay, they are the food, the really nutritious food for the ancestors on the other side who are waiting for us to bring our stuff to them. So and ask for their help. You know.
Right.
So it's this symbiotic relationship where we bring our grief, we bring whatever our stuff is, our crap, to the crucible where the ancestors are hanging with us. They're here, right? And they're waiting for us to talk about this and say, we need help. And what they exhale is what we inhale. They give answers if we'll be open. And so that's what, I'm also talking about in the crucible for me is this story can have consequences if I will allow it in me to go into myself and for me to track how the story has actually traveled through me. You said that I have some words that you don't always use. We both said, like, I know that I've had like hunting stuff, and you talked about garden. You like nurturing and feeding and stewarding, like, and they all work. Yeah. They all work. So that's where I want to say that.
I love it. Hey man, you have this you haven't mentioned it here in the Cross-Eyed Crucible, but we've talked about this offline, and I don't mean to go back into the story, but there's a specific dialogue that happens between Bhagavad Gita, the father, right, and the king. And this is kind of determines Ahimsaka's fate. Do you want to talk about that? Because I appreciate how you kind of tease out that scene. Like that scene has meaning.
Oh, the thing with the father says, but should I kill the baby? And then, yeah, man, that thing just, well, yeah, thanks for asking me about it. But also I'm kind of like, it's upsetting to me too, because like, the father, as I said, maybe this is the part that you're talking about. The father is like, I'm so worked up about having a baby. He's happy, he's scared, he's sad, and he gets confused. And he comes to the king and he says, my son's going to be a killer. Should I kill him?
Yeah.
And luckily the king says, all right. And that's where, to me, like, that's an absence of the feminine. To not have had the mother's point of view before you go to the king, you're going to say things like that I might think are for the kingdom, but are actually for my own ego. Fix the situation for me so I don't have to deal with the tension of it. You know what I'm saying? So, luckily the king, who maybe has some feminine in him, he's more balanced, says,
balance.
Is this kid going to be the leader of an army that's going to destroy us? And maybe that's an ego thing for him too. He's more like a Herod. If this boy's going to show up and kick me off of the throne, then I'm concerned. But if he's just going to maybe kill a few people, we can work with him, right? So there's a little sarcasm there, but because I'm trying to figure out if it's also the king's ego. But I thought that there was this balance. It's okay to have ego. Everybody's scared. It's all good. That the king offered a balance. So that was my point of view on that. Is that what we were talking about?
Yeah, and I love it. I love how you just distill that scene. And each time we talk about it, I learn something new or more, or either your analysis becomes a little bit more complex. And so I keep appreciating that and returning to that. So thank you for offering the community your perspective on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking me to talk about it, because I like talking about it. And we're working things out. It really helps.
Absolutely. And for our community, we just want you to know that anything that has to do with the story is on the table. So even as I am reading the story, right, this is my voice telling the story. even if there's something about my voice or my telling of a story that is throwing you off, that works. Take notice of your environment. If there's something, if your room is cold or if it's warm and cozy, also consider how that is contributing to how you're hearing the story as well. So everything, it all counts.
I do want to say too, Kevin, thank you for that. Expansion. We all get to have our feelings about whatever we have feelings about. At the same time, since we're going to be talking about emotions and people may get fired up or have grief, in the comments, if we can all be gentle with each other, we're all in this together. If we can all just be kind and support each other, that would be great. That we appreciate that. I appreciate it. Because okay. Enough said on that. We're past the time we were on to stop. Do we want to cross the threshold out of here?
Let's cross the threshold.
Yeah, and
thank you to our community.
Yeah,
thank you.
Stick with us on the threshold thing. Whatever your feelings about it now, we've worked with it and it feels good to us. We hope it feels good to you. So I'll walk us out, okay, Kevin? Grandmothers and grandfathers, all our spirit friends, all the benevolent ones who know us better than we know ourselves. Wow. So good to be with you in this cross-eyed crucible. You help us to bring the ingredients, and the crucible helps us to bake it in something good for service to our brothers and sisters. Help us to be with whatever we bring to this. It's all okay. Help us when we walk out of here to be okay with this. If we get confused or frustrated, maybe we share this with somebody else, have somebody else listen to the story and talk until we get back next week. Give ourselves that kind of trusted consultation. It's all okay. We're doing good things here and we're thankful for you. And so this is Matt from Michigan, the Blue Hand State. I'm going to cross over the threshold, my hand on the door frame. I say, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm out.
Thank you so much for that, Matt. And I just want to add to this, ancestors, thank you for being with us. In the crucible, may you continue working on us, on our heart, mind, and soul as we exit this community and we step into the outside world. Also, I want to call in the energy of our spirit friends on this journey, the love dogs. I want to give a special shout out to those brothers because I recognize that we've built a community with those brothers around this story that preceded the cross-eyed crucible. And so I just want to call in their energy and just say thank you so much for offering your heart and soul and stewarding this story. And I am so thankful for this community. And I step out of the cross-eyed crucible and I'm out.
Amen. All right, I'm start up the music. We'll dance our way out of here. All right.